The betrayal was revealed. My wife cheated long before I ever did. I accepted the punishment, lived like a man serving a sentence, silently enduring 2 years just to atone for a fracture I thought I caused. But then, I uncovered the truth. She was the one who betrayed me first. My entire world collapsed. I no longer knew what love felt like, only the slow-burning ache of betrayal and the cold emptiness that lingered night after night. Welcome to Storytime Reddit, everyone. You probably won't believe this, but the person I loved the most in this world ended up being the very first one who made me stop believing in love. We met back in high school, dated for 3 years. Then we broke up in senior year, young, dumb, and full of pride. A year later, like fate had its own twisted sense of timing, we got back together, and this time, it felt permanent. At 21, we had our first child, a daughter, and got married in what felt like a fairy tale. Both our families were ecstatic. I went from being a carefree gamer to a responsible dad almost overnight. I worked like crazy, got promoted quickly, and was traveling constantly for work. By 24, we had our second child, a son. That's also when things started to quietly fall apart. Before the kids, our sex life was great, even exciting. But after our son was born, it dwindled into nothing. Some months, we didn't even touch each other once. Then, on one of my long work trips, I met a colleague, someone who, coincidentally, was also stuck in a sexless marriage. It started with small talk, then emotional bonding. Then eventually, the inevitable. We didn't fall in love. We just needed something that felt alive, something physical. Every time I visited that city, we'd hook up. No strings. No promises. Just a temporary escape. That arrangement went on for about 1.5 years, and then we both agreed to end it for good. We had families. We had to fix what we broke. I cut off all contact with her and threw myself into my marriage. Our sex life didn't get better, but I told myself, family matters more. I made a vow to never cheat again, and I meant it. Then 2 years later, my wife found an old video buried in my laptop. One I should have deleted. It was proof. Undeniable. She saw it. I didn't make excuses. I confessed. I apologized. I promised I would do everything to earn her trust again. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She gave me rules. No more video games, no more hanging out with friends, no social media, change jobs, full transparent mails, texts, everything. And I agreed. All of it. Like a criminal on parole. For 2 straight years, I lived like a prisoner in my own home. And I did it all because I still loved her. But the thing that hurt the most was the silence. No matter how much I gave up, no matter how much I changed myself, she never once said she trusted me again, not even close. Our sex life was still cold, her affection distant, and I began to wonder, was I trying to save a love that had already died? Did I deserve to be punished forever for something I had already paid for? Then one night I read a comment on Reddit that said, "Sometimes the one who's punishing you the hardest is hiding something themselves." I didn't want to believe it, but the more I looked at her behavior, the secretive smiles, the hushed texts, the moments where she'd hide her phone, I couldn't ignore the gut feeling anymore. So I did what I never thought I'd do. I installed a keylogger on our laptop. I didn't expect much. Honestly, I was hoping I was wrong, that I was just being paranoid, but what I found, it shattered me. There was an email account I'd never seen before. Buried in a folder labeled tax info were hundreds of emails, flirty, sexual, graphic, between her and a man named Steve. I don't even know who he is. Not a friend, not a colleague. Not anyone she's ever mentioned. They weren't just sleeping together, they were in it, emotional, intimate, planning meetings, sharing fantasies, saying things she hadn't said to me in years. I sat there in silence. My heart was pounding, but my hands were steady as I forwarded every email to a private account I'd set up just in case I needed evidence. Then I wiped my tracks clean. That same night, she told me she was going to see a movie with a friend. I smiled and said nothing. But when she ignored all 10 of my calls and didn't walk through the door until after 1 a.m., I already knew. But now I understand. Not every relationship ends with a fight or a betrayal you can see. Some fall apart in silence, in whispers, in calculated lies so carefully placed that by the time you notice, the damage is already done. Some betrayals don't scream, they just quietly walk away, leaving you standing in the ashes, asking yourself, how the hell did it come to this? I thought I had mentally prepared myself to be a single date at least in theory, but the reality hit much harder than I ever expected. The first few days after Emily left, the house felt hauntingly quiet. No more click-clack of her heels in the morning. No familiar voice reminding the kids to grab their jackets before heading out. Just me, three little ones, and a crushing silence that wrapped around the entire house like a blanket of emptiness. My youngest daughter is only 4, and she still calls out "Mommy" in the middle of the night. The middle one quietly sobs every time the phone rings, thinking it might be her mom. My eldest, these 8, reacted differently. He didn't cry, didn't ask questions, he just shut down. He used to be the jokester at the dinner table, always trying to make his sisters laugh. Now, he silently pushes food around his plate, staring off into some distant place I can't reach. Seeing them like that breaks me in ways I can't even describe. I try my best. I cook. I clean, I do school runs, I read bedtime stories, but deep down, I know what they truly need is something I can never replace. I've come to realize I'm terrible at cooking. The kids rarely finish the meals I prepare. One of them even told me flat out, "Dad, your food doesn't taste as good as Mom's." I didn't get mad, how could I? I agreed with them. Most mornings feel like a race against the clock, making breakfast for 3, picking out clothes, checking homework, then rushing to work. I'm late almost every day. By the time I get home, I'm exhausted, sometimes collapsing onto the couch without even eating. Meanwhile, Emily is touring Europe with Jake. I didn't hear it from her, of course. A mutual friend stumbled across her private story on social media, one she only shares with a select few. She's out there living her best life like she doesn't have 3 children back in Canada, wondering why their mom is gone. And I can't help but wonder, does she ever feel a shred of guilt? But the second I think that, I catch myself. It's foolish to expect remorse from someone who willingly walked away from all of this. I took the kids in for their regular doctor checkup. The doctor, an elderly woman with the warmest heart, sat with me for quite a while. She handed me booklets on helping kids cope after divorce and gently emphasized the importance of stability and honest communication. I nodded along the whole time, but inside, I was trembling. I didn't know if I could actually do this. I'm terrified that one day my children will grow up carrying invisible scars from being abandoned by their mother, and I won't be able to fix that. Thankfully, my family didn't abandon me the way Emily did. My mom, she's 78, packed her bags and stayed with us for 2 full weeks. She cooked hot meals, washed the kids' tiny clothes, and played with them just so I could catch my breath. My siblings took turns visiting. They brought toys and snacks, helped clean the house, repaired the broken fence, even took care of the kids' summer camp registrations. I never realized how deeply loved I was until my entire world fell apart. And thanks to their support, I started to find my footing again. Not all at once, but little by little. I learned how to cook the dishes my kids actually enjoy. I figured out how to braid my daughter's hair. I even learned to fold laundry the way Emily used to. I'm not trying to replace their mother. I'm just trying to become a better version of the dad they deserve. I used to believe that if I ever lost Emily, I'd fall apart completely. But as the days passed, I realized something that changed everything. It wasn't Emily who kept me standing. It was my 3 children. And my family who stood by me every single step of the way. I used to think the worst pain in a marriage was infidelity, but I was wrong. The worst pain is when the person who once held you close at night, the one who used to call you "my love," is able to walk out of your life and the lives of your children without ever looking back. Emily admitted that her relationship with Jake had started back in March, but I'm convinced it went further back than that. She claimed she still loved the kids and even loved me in some way, but said she couldn't live a lie anymore. She had already submitted her UK visa application, secured a job there, and that August trip? It wasn't just for a wedding, it was for a job interview, a trial run, her soft launch into a new life. While I was at home cooking dinners and trying to keep our family together, she was planning her exit. She even told me she wouldn't fight for custody of the kids, said it was to spare them from pain. But I knew the real reason. Jake didn't want to raise kids that weren't his. Every time I think about that, my chest feels like it might explode with rage. I told her I wouldn't accept a single cent from her. I'd raise the kids on my own, but my lawyer made it clear it wasn't that simple. Legally, she's still responsible for child support. Emily also offered to do video calls during holidays and summer breaks to stay in touch with the kids. Part of me wanted to shut all of it down, to cut her off completely. But I knew the kids deserved some sense of stability, even if their mother had already abandoned them. A few days after that confrontation, Jake flew out to Canada. He and Emily stayed in an Airbnb not far from where I live. The thought that this man, one who wrecked my family, was now casually sipping coffee in the morning next to my former wife while I was running around making breakfast, doing laundry, and tucking our kids into bed, it was humiliating beyond words. I felt like I was just a faded memory in her life, a chapter she'd already closed, while Jake was the beginning of her shiny new story. I couldn't stop replaying the small details in my head. She told me she brought 3 suitcases full of gifts for her friends. Now I realized those were packed with her personal belongings. All those nights she stayed up, working late? She was probably messaging or FaceTiming Jake. She had hidden it so well that I never even suspected anything until a stranger exposed it all. Emily used to be the person I thought I'd grow old with. I remember her whispering to me in the hospital the night our first child was born, "We're a team now." And now, that team is just me. Me, standing alone, trying to hold it together for 3 little kids who keep asking, "Where's mom, dad?" Me, picking up the pieces of the life she left in ruins. And the worst part? Realizing she had planned to leave us long before I even saw it coming. She was just waiting for the right time, a time when it would be the least inconvenient for her. I wish I could say I felt relieved after her confession, but in truth, I felt hollow. Not because I still loved her, but because the woman I once believed in, the mother I thought my kids could rely on, the person I trusted most in the world, never truly existed. After all the confessions, after all the undeniable evidence, Emily chose to walk away. No custody battle, no tears, no demands. She told me outright that she wouldn't fight for custody of our 3 kids, that it would be best for them to stay with me. She said she didn't want to hurt them anymore. But I knew deep down, this wasn't some noble sacrifice for the children. It was because Jake, her new man, didn't want to raise 3 kids who weren't his. It was a clean, effortless abandonment, void of guilt or hesitation. She called it a mature decision. I call it cowardly and cruel. My laptop. One I should have deleted. It was proof. Undeniable. She saw it. I didn't make excuses. I confessed. I apologized. I promised I would do everything to earn her trust again. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She gave me rules. No more video games, no more hanging out with friends, no social media, change jobs, full transparency mails, texts, everything. And I agreed, all of it, like a criminal on parole. For 2 straight years, I lived like a prisoner in my own home. And I did it all because I still loved her. But the thing that hurt the most was the silence. No matter how much I gave up, no matter how much I changed myself, she never once said she trusted me again, not even close. Our sex life was still cold, her affection distant, and I began to wonder, was I trying to save a love that had already died? Did I deserve to be punished for? When my mom moved in with us, our home slowly found a rhythm again. The kids smiled more. They had homemade meals, bedtime stories, and another adult they trusted. The house felt warmer, less tense. And for the first time in weeks, I slept through the night without jolting awake from anxiety. My sisters sent care packages, books, clothes, little surprises for the kids. One of my brothers and his wife drove in from several hours away and stayed the weekend. They helped with everything: errands, cooking, cleaning, playing with the kids. My sister-in-law even prepped and froze meals so I could just heat something up on the hardest days. I'll never forget the day I had an emergency call from my lawyer and couldn't pick up the kids. They were already at the school, ready, without me even asking. They treated my kids like their own. In that moment, I realized Emily betrayed me, yes, but I was never truly alone. My family didn't point fingers. They didn't scold me for missing the signs. They didn't ask, "Why didn't you see this coming?" They just came, quietly, open, armed. Exactly when I needed them most. One night, as I was washing dishes, I quietly told my mom, "I feel like such a failure." She reached over, placed her hand on mine and said, "No, sweetheart. You're doing something incredibly brave, holding your kids close with a shattered heart. That's what strength looks like." I almost lost it right then. Because she was right. I'm hurting, but I don't have the luxury to collapse. I have to keep going. For them. Eventually, I had to face one of the biggest questions looming over Meath House. Once filled with warmth and laughter, it had become a cold echo chamber of memories I wasn't ready to revisit. I wanted to keep it for the kids' sake. Same school, same friends, less disruption, but it was too big, too much. I started looking at smaller places, closer to work. The kids resisted at first, but after I reassured them that their school and friends wouldn't change, they slowly began to accept the idea. To my surprise, Emily offered me a larger share of the house sale. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe she just wanted out. I didn't question it. I had covered nearly 70% of the mortgage and repairs anyway. She had already secretly sold the SUV registered in her name that I'd paid 40% for. My lawyer said I could ask for compensation. Emily didn't fight it. She just wanted to disappear. And I realized I needed to start over. Not just for me, but for my kids. A home without her shadow. A dinner table not weighed down by silence. A living room where my children's laughter wasn't muffled by sadness. Plate, staring off into some distant place I can't reach. Seeing them like that breaks me in ways I can't even describe. I try my best. I cook. I clean. I do school runs. I read bedtime stories, but deep down, I know what they truly need is something I can never replace. I've come to realize I'm terrible at cooking. The kids rarely finish the meals I prepare. One of them even told me flat out, "Dad, your food doesn't taste as good as Mom's." I didn't get mad, how could I? I agreed with them. Most mornings feel like a race against the clock, making breakfast for 3, picking out clothes, checking homework, then rushing to work. I'm late almost every day. By the time I get home, I'm exhausted, sometimes collapsing onto the couch without even eating. Meanwhile, Emily is touring Europe with Jake. I didn't hear it from her, of course. A mutual friend stumbled across her private story on social media, one she only shares with a select few. She's out there living her best life like she doesn't have 3 children back in Canada, wondering why their mom is gone. And I can't help but wonder, does she ever feel a shred of guilt? But the second I think that, I catch myself. It's foolish to expect remorse from someone who willingly walked away from all of this. I took the kids in for their regular doctor checkup. The doctor, an elderly woman with the warmest heart, sat with me for quite a while. She handed me booklets on helping kids cope after divorce and gently emphasized the importance of stability and honest communication. So I told her, firmly, I can't forgive you right now, but if you truly want to fix this, we need separation and therapy. We can't live in this lie anymore. She resisted. Said separation would drive us further apart, but for the first time in years, I didn't back down. I'm not your jailer. If you're truly sorry, prove it with actions, not tears. I packed my things and moved into my best friend's spare room. On weekends, I returned to see the kids. I didn't stop being a dad, but I stopped being a prisoner. And yes, I loved them, no matter what. Whether they were mine biologically or not, I loved them. But I still needed to know the truth. I scheduled a DNA test without telling her. As for her, she tried. She said she cut contact with Stevie, at least as far as I could tell. She agreed to let me manage our finances. She was open about everything, even down to what she had for lunch. But inside me was still a black hole. I started obsessing, jealousy, paranoia. Checking her laptop, scrutinizing her emails, and I hated myself for it. I didn't want to live like this. But she had made me into someone who couldn't live any other way. Then the results came back. Both kids were mine. I collapsed onto the floor, not from heartbreak, but from overwhelming relief. I had never been more terrified, and I had never exhaled so deeply in my life. But even with the truth in front of me, even knowing they were truly mine, I still didn't know if I could forgive her. Because sometimes, betrayal isn't just in the act, it's in what it turns you into, in how it makes you doubt your own instincts, in how it rewrites your sense of self, your identity, and leaves you questioning your worth every single day. And now, I was staring at the hardest question of all. Is love ever strong enough to survive this kind of damage? She had sworn they were mine. I know they are, she said. But she gave me no proof, just words, words that carried no weight when they came from the same mouth that had hidden an entire affair. That night, I didn't fall apart because I lost her. I fell apart because I realized I may have never truly had a real family at all. I couldn't sleep. I walked aimlessly, trying to find something to hold on to, but inside me, all that remained was betrayal. The DNA test should have brought peace. Instead, it opened up something darker. Not all pain comes from doubt. Some of the deepest wounds come from realizing how the person you trusted most used your guilt against you. When I cheated, I didn't lie. I didn't run. I owned it. I sacrificed everything to rebuild her trust, gave up friends, hobbies, even my career. I lived in full repentance, accepting every restriction she placed on me. But she didn't walk that path with me. She kept her own betrayal hidden, using my guilt as leverage to keep me shackled. While I worked to prove I'd never hurt her again, she was still sneaking around, still whispering to Steve behind my back. And the hardest part? I gave it everything. And she gave me nothing but lies in return. I couldn't keep living like a prisoner, scanning her devices, watching for signs like a paranoid detective. That wasn't who I wanted to be. I didn't want to be angry. I didn't want to be hollow. I wanted to be free. So one afternoon, while the kids were napping and golden sunlight poured through the blinds, I sat her down, calm, steady. And I told her, I can't forgive you, not because of the affair, but because of how you turned my remorse into punishment. You didn't rebuild us, you built a prison, and I can't live there anymore. She cried, begged, promised anything, but I wasn't that man anymore. I had already paid. Now, I was choosing freedom. I moved out, finalized the divorce, kept 50/50th custody, and for the first time in years, I'm just me again. A father, a man healing, a man who finally knows. Forgiveness doesn't mean a life sentence. And sometimes, walking away is the kindest thing you can do for them and for yourself. No one ever warns you about the kind of emptiness that follows a divorce. It doesn't hit all at once. It seeps in slowly, like a hairline crack in your chest that widens each day until one evening, you're alone in your apartment, sitting on a couch that still smells like your old family home, surrounded by toys your kids left behind, and the silence feels heavier than grief. I couldn't believe that a mother, someone who used to hold our kids every night, who promised to always be there for them, could walk away so easily. She didn't just leave me, she left them. Our babies. Every time my youngest daughter looks up at me and asks, "Where's mommy?" I feel like something is squeezing the life out of my chest. I've had to bite my tongue and feed them stories like, "She's on a work trip," or "She's busy, but she loves you." All the while, I know exactly where Emily is, somewhere in Europe, holding Jake's hand, starting a brand new life that doesn't include us. She offered financial support, said she'd send money monthly, and asked to stay in touch with the kids via video calls during holidays. I refused. Not because I didn't need the help. Raising 3 kids alone is no small task, but because I didn't want her disrupting their lives any more than she already had. Still, my lawyer reminded me it's not that simple. Legally, she still has visitation rights, and she's required to pay child support. The irony stings. A woman who chose to abandon her own children still gets to be called mom in the eyes of the law. Emily didn't push back. She signed every document without protest, even voluntarily gave me full custody. All she asked for was to see the kids during summer breaks and holidays, and maybe a few video calls if the kids were willing. I agreed. Not because I wanted her in their lives, but because I believe when they're older, they deserve to choose for themselves whether they want to see the woman who walked away from them. Until then, I'll protect them from any further hurt. I spoke with my lawyer about keeping the house, at least for the next few years, so the kids wouldn't have to deal with even more change. Emily, on the other hand, wanted to sell it and split the money. But she didn't push it too hard. She said she just wanted things to be fair, as if, after everything, fairness was her priority. All I wanted was to hold on to whatever fragments were left of a family that no longer existed. The days after Emily left were eerily silent. No more laughter echoing down the hall, no scent of her perfume in the morning, no sound of her making coffee and reminding me to wear a jacket. Just me and 3 kids, and 1,000 unanswered questions. I don't know how I'm supposed to heal the wounds she left behind. But one thing I do know, I will not let my children grow up feeling abandoned, feeling unwanted the way I feel right now. I thought the nightmare would end after Emily confessed and left, but I was wrong. Another storm was just beginning, one that came when Eleanor, Jake's soon-to-be ex-wife, reached out to me again. She sent me even more undeniable proof of the relationship between Emily and Jake. Flirty text messages, photos of them holding hands, sweet little chats, and even Jake's flight records to Canada that matched perfectly with the times Emily had claimed she was traveling for work. I didn't need more evidence. Emily had already admitted to everything, but Eleanor was relentless. She said something I'll never forget. "I feel guilty for being the one to destroy your marriage, but I couldn't let you keep living in a lie." And the most bitter part? I was grateful she did it. Then Eleanor told me something that sent a chill down my spine. This wasn't Jake's first affair. He had cheated on her twice before, and she had tried to forgive him both times for the kids. But this time was different. She said Jake had no interest in raising children who weren't biologically his. And that, right there, was the real reason Emily abandoned our kids. I don't think I've ever felt more insulted in my life. A mother walking away from her own children to go play stepmom to a cheater's kids? No apology, no shame, just silence. Jake and Emily now live together in a rented apartment near the center of my city. They go out in public like a newlywed couple shopping, dining, smiling. A friend of mine told me they're even bragging about an upcoming European vacation. Meanwhile, I'm waking up at 5 a.m. every day, making breakfast, packing lunches, getting 3 kids to school, and rushing to work. And what is Emily doing? Sipping wine in Florence, lounging on a yacht in Nice. It's not that she left me that hurts most, it's that she left her children, like they were never even part of her life. Same school, same friends, less disruption, but it was too big, too much. I started looking at smaller places, closer to work. The kids resisted at first, but after I reassured them that their school and friends wouldn't change, they slowly began to accept the idea. To my surprise, Emily offered me a larger share of the house sale. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe she just wanted out. I didn't question it. I had covered nearly 70% of the mortgage and repairs anyway. She had already secretly sold the SUV registered in her name that I'd paid 40% for. My lawyer said I could ask for compensation. Emily didn't fight it. She just wanted to disappear.